to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County, and this show is about Plymouth County real estate. The headline for the month was Sales Improving, Mortgages and Foreclosure Activity Stable. So we're going to talk about the numbers for the month of recordings in June. We're going to talk a little bit about the county agreement with Donegal to have a sister county relationship, and I have Plymouth County Commissioner Greg Hanley joining me for that segment, and then we'll go to one of our Plymouth Colony records. So let's get right to the numbers. As far as sales go, it was an encouraging month, and you can see that from the bar chart. The numbers went up for the month. There were 815 deeds recorded in June, more than the 707 in May, 13% less than last year. And year-to-date, deeds are down 20%. You're going to see an image of all the sales in Plymouth County. There are 27 communities in Plymouth County, so you'll see sales from Abington to Whitman. Every community had a lot of sales, but Plymouth and Brockton were the highest. Next, you're going to see what has been significant to us is the extreme drop in mortgages. And although they bumped up a little bit in June, they're still way down compared to last year and the year before. There were 1,269 mortgages recorded in June, less than the 1,274 in May, down 30% compared to last year's June. But year-to-date, we're down 44% in mortgages. There are still mortgages getting recorded when people are buying a home, but the refinancing market stopped when the rates went up and has continued to be very, very short. We always talk about foreclosures since the meltdown in 2008. The numbers are very low because of the moratorium. There was a moratorium in place during COVID, and lenders are only beginning to get caught up. There were 12 foreclosure deeds for all of Plymouth County in June, less than the 15 in May. But year-to-date, because there was a moratorium of recordings last year for foreclosures, it's up 38%. Notices a little more activity. There were 51 foreclosure deeds, notices in June, and then less than the 59 in May. So I'm going to we're down up 48% in foreclosure notices. So I'm going to bring up a list, again, of all our communities, all 27, and you can see a lot of the communities have either a foreclosure deed or an order of notice, but by far the highest order of notices is within the city of Brockton. And traditionally, the highest has been Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham in that order. So you may see that as we go forward. I always like to tell people, if you're concerned about protecting your property, we try to do that every day, refusing to put things on record that shouldn't be. But if you sign up for our free property fraud alert, go to our website, PlymouthDeeds.org, go to resources, and go to the property fraud alert. You can sign up for free with your email. And if something gets recorded under your name, you will get an email, and you can decide whether it's something that should have been recorded, like a discharge or a refinance, little of those these days, or something you need to pay attention to. Our electronic recording numbers are still very high. That is the recordings over the internet, 80% in recorded land and over 50% in land court side. Beware of scams out there. People will always try to take advantage of your home because it is for most people your most valuable asset. So pay attention to things. Don't sign up willy-nilly to anything you might thinks is good for you, because many times it's just a scam. So we'll see in the next segment. The next segment we'll be talking about Plymouth County's sister county agreement with Donegal. They visited us last fall, and a Plymouth County delegation went to Donegal about a month ago. And one of the people whose idea it was to do this to begin with, Commissioner Greg Hanley, will be with me on that segment. So we'll see you in that segment. So welcome back to the Register's Report.
Well, thank you for having me, John.
You were
It's been
here,
a while since I've been
here a few years ago. So I think it would be important for you to describe where Donegal is, because a lot of people don't know the layout of Ireland, and why you thought, because it was your idea, that it'd be great for the county, Plymouth County, to partner up with Donegal County.
Well, it actually goes back to a discussion that you and I had about forming a sister county relationship with a county in Donegal. And ironically, my family surname on my mother's side was McLaughlin. And coincidentally, our good friend, Claire Cronin, who's now the Irish ambassador, her family name is McLaughlin. So I figured that if you were going to have a Plymouth County presence, and we had a couple of McLaughlins, that Donegal would be the landing spot. And weren't we correct? It's up in the northwest tip of Ireland, and it's right next to Northern Ireland, which brought very interesting perspective when we were over visiting, talking about our economic development program with some kelp farmers, which is a beautiful part of Ireland.
So the folks from Donegal came over to Massachusetts last fall.
Yep, November of 22, a delegation was sent over. The mayor of Donegal and his economic team came to a conference that we hosted down in Plymouth, the other shire town of Plymouth County. And we had a signing ceremony, an agreement between the two counties to exchange ideas and thoughts on tourism, culture, and economic development. And we signed an agreement with my colleagues, Jared Valenzola and Sandra Wright. And you were there that day. We were hosted in your building, and we brought them all down to Pilgrim Hall, where we had a discussion with the mayor's team. Brockton, Mr. Sullivan, had sent in his stead. He was there for the ceremony, but for the academic portion of it, he had sent the CFO of Brockton, Troy Clarkson, and it was a very interesting and exciting opportunity to jumpstart the relationship, because those delegates went back to their council, and they agreed that this would be a mutually beneficial thing between the counties, and we were off to the races.
I thought it was fascinating that Pilgrim Hall had the remnants of the sparrowhawk.
Yes, the first Irish people recorded to have landed in America, which is kind of consistent, if you think about it, John, with the Scituate, in the trail up there, and the Irish Riviera, as you call it, is the most densely populated Irish immigrants in the country. So there was a lot of synergies there, and I think we sent them back to Ireland with a lot to think of, and we were fortunate enough for them to agree and then invite us back to a counter-signing ceremony, which yourself, former City Council President, Ward 6 Councilor Jack Lally, and of course the Dean of the Delegation, the Clerk of Courts, Mr. Creedon. So it was a wonderful event. They kept us going the whole time we were there. I think our first stop was in Dublin, and you had a couple of stops that you wanted us to see while we were there.
For Jack Lally, Councilor Lally, was his first time to Europe, first time with a passport, and we wanted to show him around Dublin. We went through Trinity College, we went through the Molly Malone statue, and of course we topped it off with a visit to one of the oldest pubs in Dublin, McQuaid's.
Allegedly the oldest pub, but there's more research to be done on that on a return trip.
They certainly have competitors that claim to be the oldest pub in Dublin.
I know that's a favorite theme of yours. As we matriculated through the county several years ago, when we were both on the ballot together, we were looking for the oldest pub in Plymouth County. I don't know how much luck we had that year, but we both got elected.
But I'll tell you, it was a very short trip. I'll mention for our viewers, privately paid for.
Correct.
Ray Cronin, Claire Cronin's husband, and Claire were very generous to host us for a night. That was nice.
It was phenomenal to be in the Irish Embassy with all that history, rich in tradition, and I was honored to be there. And I can't say enough about Ambassador Cronin and especially Ray on that particular trip, but she has done a fantastic job promoting America in her Irish background, and she was very helpful with us in putting this all together for the Sister County Agreement. She opened the door for us and lended a little bit of legitimacy to the opportunities. And we, you can expand upon it. We can talk about some of the things we learned and some of the things we've discussed since. So,
well, some of the photos are fascinating. I know Emma Reardon from Brockton Cable Access is going to try to match some of them to our conversation. And one of the ones that hit me was the original copy of the Easter Agreement in the ambassador's residence.
Very historical, and I think there were only 11 copies ever produced by that, and we actually were in the presence of greatness. If you remember the grounds, there was a statue of Lincoln, a statue of Kennedy, and every ambassador since was responsible for leaving a famous leave behind. And I think you and I were surprised to see an Italian representation of Irish history on the
bocce courts.
The bocce courts that were named for former speakers De Leo and current speaker Mariano, who, by the way, Ambassador Cronin served with distinctions. And that's really prominently why she broke a lot of glass ceilings by moving her way over to the State Department. And although she wasn't the first female, if you think about Ethel Kennedy and the roots there, it is an honor for us as residents of Plymouth County to have her as the ambassador. I'm very proud, and I'm proud to share the same surname with her.
So morning 2, we were picked up and we went up to Donegal. Our first stop was Lifford, which is the capital of Donegal.
Yeah, we toured the chambers of the seat of government, and we were hosted by our benefactors, and we got a chance to stop there, but then we went on to...
We checked into Letterkenny.
Which is the other seat of government.
Yeah, and the driver took us up to Greencastle, up in the peninsula, Inchwood Peninsula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was basically the kelp operating factory, and I want to thank you for your leadership on that, having invited those folks that hosted us. They brought us out into the strait that was in kind of a demilitarized zone between Ireland, the state of, in Northern Ireland, and they showed us an operation of kelp farming, which yields about 2 crops of 15 tons of kelp annually, and we learned how kelp is such a superfood and ingredient. I think you actually even commented that NASA is looking into investing into somehow producing that for long space travel for astronauts, and that was just one of the many uses that we witnessed by a host family, the McLaughlin family of Donegal, another group related to the surname. But
funny how many names are up there. They're the same.
It's like Smith or Sullivan. I shouldn't say that in Brockton. We love the mayor. But no, very interesting. And as you're aware, you've made arrangements for them to invite, to come over and visit when Plymouth hosts its Blue-Green Economy seminar. And we've invited the McLaughlin family to be the keynote speakers and work with a company out of, I believe it's Duxbury, doing business in the Plymouth Harbor on kelp farming. So they're right automatically. There's an opportunity for pharmaceutical use, for medicinal use, for food and cosmetic use, and it's an up-and-coming, emerging part of a blue-green economy.
Yes, Steve Cole, one of the economic development leaders in the Plymouth region, mentioned to me as we were putting the trip together, don't miss the ability to see kelp farming, because he believes, and I've become to believe since looking at it, that it's a huge thing going forward in the future for sustainability of feeding people when other crops may fail.
Mm-hmm. And that really is the nugget that we brought home with us, and I think with the expansion of that. And the renewable part of it was what was
Right.
interesting to me. 15 tons of kelp twice a
Right.
year. That's 30 tons of kelp. And it's a new and emerging technology, and the way it's being cultivated now, the sharing of ideas is the benefit. You know, how do they do it, and they compare, and then maybe there'll be some investment.
So I know Emma will be showing some pictures of us on the boat as we went out and looked at the kelp farm. It was a great return visit when the family had baked us scones upon our
Kelp
tea and
scones.
scones at our return. And then the team, the Green Kelp Farm team, took us down to their local pub for a drink before we headed off back to Letterkenny.
When in Rome, you do as the Romans
right,
do, John.
right.
We didn't want to offend
was
them by
just-
not going to the pub.
They were very friendly, very honored that we chose them, and rightly so, because they're really part of a big movement up there that we want to highlight as part of our efforts, as well as for the Donegal government to highlight.
It was interesting after we left there and we started the journey back to Donegal town. That's where the tourism piece kind of connected with the
Yeah.
Plymouth history, and we would begin talking about the Donegal Castle.
Yeah.
And our host, Gary Martin, the economic minister, and Michael Naughton, Mihal Naughton,
Yeah.
was a deputy mayor, and of course Liam Blaney, the mayor, who invited us over. It was on to the next day of business, which was, I think, our third day there.
But before the castle, we were taken to a couple well-known establishments
In the textile industry.
in that textile, Hannah's Hats, and what was the name of the place that you bought yourself?
Oh, okay. my Donegal tweed was from, I believe, I'm forgetting it. It escapes me, but I will say, having young Jack Lally with us and being, from the City of Champions, he picked up on that and the opportunities that may present themselves here in the city of Brockton on the old mills and maybe
Right.
restoring some of that. I know the mayor had talked about incubation space and innovation center and inviting our colleagues from government from Ireland over to make investments in the city of Brockton. So there's another offshoot of what we discussed that night, and the hospitality of all the folks in Donegal. As we were walking down the street in our nicely purchased threads, we did pretty good by way of Plymouth County.
So we did pose, I don't think we went into the O'Donnell pub, but O'Donnell is a huge name in Donegal town.
And it's huge in Norfolk County, as you know. Your colleague William O'Donnell, I
We
think,
have
was
John O'Donnell here in Brockton, that's chairman of the Board of Assessors. They're all over the place.
They are not like the Buckleys and the Hanleys, right?
So it was fascinating to go to the signing ceremony, and I know there are a lot of great pictures that will be brought up as we're talking about it into Donegal Castle.
Well, for me personally, we made history when we did that, and it was recorded, and it was taken very seriously, and we were treated with the utmost of respect and honor, and in the interest of an invitation to come back, because out of that sister county agreement, it's a 2-year deal where the county of Plymouth will host 2 conferences, one in the spring and one in the fall, and the county of Donegal, or Donegal County, will host 2 conferences. So we're looking to really expand upon the opportunities that have presented themselves to the benefit of the residents of both counties and the businesses for the most part.
Well, there'll be a lot of photos from inside the castle that I know Emma will bring up, and fascinating place, 1300s, built by the O'Donnells, matter of fact. And then my favorite picture was at the very end as we were leaving, in the courtyard, we all gathered together with a thumbs up
Yep.
goodbye.
Yep, that was great.
Yeah.
And, I sincerely wanted to make your part of the trip a success, because when we returned to Dublin, before we had to fly out, we went to a world-famous pub called the White Stag, which I know is a favorite of yours.
Yeah.
And you had sent me there on a mission prior to that.
Stag's Head Pub.
Stag's Head
I
Pub.
don't want people going to the wrong place.
That's yep. That's in the Temple Bar area, and we were in another century-old location, and thoroughly enjoyed ourselves. We were so tired from a
Right.
non-stop pace. Can't thank enough of our hosts for really rolling out the red carpet for us, and really gave me a sense of purpose coming back here now as we plan our event in October. I believe it's the 16th and 17th, or the 17th and 18th. We have to settle on those dates. But at the end of the day, I think all who are involved are going to have an opportunity to see how we can present opportunity to our residents in our businesses.
So I'm hearing there's a tremendous amount of tourists going from America to Ireland this summer, and I've seen evidence of it. And if they do go and they're in Dublin, I just wanted another shout out for the Stag's Head Pub. It's a traditional old pub that is, there are not many of those left in the world, never mind in Ireland.
There wasn't even a TV in the place, which gives it that authentic feeling. Some great Irish music, and more importantly, we met so many folks that were just so genuinely interested in meeting us, and it really was a great trip.
So we'll do a follow-up. We're organizing, as you say, with the Green and Blue Economy Conference in October to have the Donegal folks be part of that, and the Blue-Green Economy Group with Steve Cole as my contact person are very excited to promote, because they see Donegal as a role model for the communities along the Atlantic Ocean that are part of Plymouth County. And I think that's a great thing to continue, because we're going to learn a lot and grow a lot with our marine economy.
Well, I'm so glad you came along, because you were the guy that was driving the bus on an agenda, and I think we had a mission accomplished there, and now it will bear fruit. I'm convinced of that.
So we'll see if we can get our visitors to join us on a show sometime when they come again.
That would be great.
Great. So thank you very much for coming. I believe it's a great story, and I hope that people recognize the importance of cross-country relationships, and we'll keep you all informed. Thank you.
Before we go, John, if I
Okay.
can look into the camera, if you can get in close on that tie. John is actually wearing a gift that was given to us in honor of our presence, and it's the crest of Donegal, and
The Gaelic
the Gaelic,
language of the Donegal.
correct, the coat of arms.
Yeah.
And in exchange, we had produced these freedom coins that
Yes.
we presented to them. On one side had the Plymouth County seal with all of our names on it, and on the other side were our host names and that seal as well. So
Yeah.
certainly a collector's item.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Good night.
I want to thank County Commissioner Greg Hanley for the great job he did in describing the sister county relationship with Donegal. In our visit to Donegal, they were here last fall, and we reciprocated, and we did the visit. First of all, flew into Dublin, and we went up to a Donegal kelp farm and went down into some of the marketing towns, and had some great exposure, and capped it off with the signing of the agreement in Donegal at the castle in Donegal. So our colonial record for this month relates to the fact that parts of Maine were actually part of Plymouth County originally, Plymouth Colony originally. And the image is, whereas it is shown forth that people were unsatisfied with the sale, that they were thinking of trying to bring Kennebunk back into the fold of Plymouth Colony, the court considered it, and they decided there was no way to do that in a good way, so that with their full consent, they decided not to, quote, meddle with it again, but ratified the sale thereof. You're seeing a handwritten version as well as a typewritten version that tells a story of a different time in our area. Colony was developing. Their reach was far, and Massachusetts, as a state, had control over Maine until Maine broke off into its own state. So that's the story. So I want to thank everyone who participated on this show. This was my 153rd show at Brockton Cable Access. I want to thank the staff here at Brockton Cable Access for taping the show, as well as figuring out how to bring the photos of our program together. So we'll see you next month.